Thanks everyone for joining this session today. My name is Snehanshu Mitra, and I manage the Center of Excellence for Data Science and Artificial Intelligence at NASSCOM. I will be the host for this afternoon. The retail industry in India is undergoing significant transformation. Globally, it is the second largest by customer base, the fifth largest by economic value, and available projections would indicate that it is set to double its size in the next 5 years to go on and become a $1.4 trillion industry. Global e-commerce giants have pioneered the use of technology in understanding dynamic demand signals, realigning supply chains, and providing consistent customer service. While they will continue to leverage deep tech to gain competitive advantage, it needs to be understood that retail in India is still largely unorganized. To be successful, digital transformation has to take everybody along, and that would also include the local convenience stores. And then there is COVID-19. It has been difficult, it has been unprecedented, and possibly even transformational. How will it affect the retail industry in India? Is a question, right? We'll try and attempt to find some answers to these important questions in this edition of AI Parley, brought to you by the Center of Excellence for Data Science and Artificial Intelligence. This event is important for one more reason to us, because we will end up launching the playbook on Indian retail, AI imperative for data-led disruptive growth. NASSCOM's research team and the Center of Excellence have joined hands with Ernst & Young and invested a good part of last 5 months to conduct an in-depth research on the roadmap, on use cases, on the challenges in leveraging AI in the Indian retail context. To start off with, I will hand it over to Hari Vasudev, Country Head and Senior Vice President of Technology at Walmart Labs India, a distinguished thought leader, industry veteran, for our keynote session. Walmart Labs India solves the biggest and most complex business challenges and delivers innovative technology solutions for Walmart, the world's largest retailer and Fortune #1 company. Hari oversees the Technology and Product Center of Innovation and Excellence and spearheads a team of highly talented associates based out of Bangalore, based out of Chennai and Gurgaon. Under his leadership, Walmart associates are innovating to create a seamless omni-channel shopping experience for Walmart's customers. And before I hand it over to Hari, can I request everybody to place their phones on mute so that it becomes a good experience for all of us to be listening into his views and the panelists' views that come after his keynote session. So good afternoon, Hari. Great to have you with us. And with that, let me hand over the stage to you. Mr. Hari Vasudev.
Thank you very much, Snehanshu. It's a pleasure to be here. I just want to do a quick check and make sure folks can see my screen. And if you can just confirm that everyone can see the screen, that's great.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you, Snehanshu and NASSCOM, for inviting me to give this keynote. It's great to see that NASSCOM's initiatives and momentum continues even while we're all stuck inside our homes and working remote. And it's really wonderful to see the community come together this way. What I thought I would do, first of all, I just wanted to call out by saying that this is the first time somebody has referred to me as an industry veteran, and that certainly makes me feel a little old, but that's okay. Yeah. And what I thought I'll do is take the next maybe 20 minutes to just walk the audience through how Walmart is thinking about artificial intelligence in retail, and what are some of the areas of focus for us. And so it won't necessarily have as much of a direct impact to India per se, but more broadly about how retail is being applied, how AI is being applied in retail technologies across the entire gamut of the business. And obviously, each of those use cases have as much relevance to India as anywhere else in the world that's going through a retail transformation. So if you look at it very broadly, right, for us, AI is in the core of most of our products. As Snehanshu mentioned, we are the world's largest retailer, Fortune #1 company in the world. We have over 11,000 stores across the globe. We have e-commerce sites, 26 sites across many countries, 260 million touch points with customers every week. And clearly, more and more, our focus is to be really driving or delivering omni-channel experiences to our customers. So experiences that blend across store and e-commerce, so that customers can shop where they want, when they want, how they want, and still be able to be able to purchase products and services at the best price possible when they want it, where they want it. And so if you look at AI, right, and if you look at the slide, what I really want to talk about here is two things, right? One, talk about all the different segments or categories across which AI is applied. So whether it's customers, for customers, it's simple things like product search, being able to find what I'm looking for, whether that's in the store or in on an online site. Being able to give recommendations to customers on what they should be buying based on their past behavior, based on the behavior of their cohorts that they belong to. Obviously, there's also an entire sort of focus on customer understanding and building insights about customers and being able to then leverage those insights. The next group of stakeholders are merchants and sellers, right? And there the idea is that as merchants and third-party sellers in particular give us feeds of items from the catalog that they want to sell, to be able to extract attributes and features from those catalogs, to be able to ensure that we're using the best possible values for those attributes across the first-party and third-party sellers, which then improves and enriches the catalog, which then improves the customer experience on the search side. Obviously, things like product substitution, which I'll talk about in the next slide in quite a bit of detail, and as well as some things like demand forecasting. So doing store item level forecasts at a very, very granular level, right? So how do I know how much of a particular item should I stock up in a particular store using both offline signals as well as online signals, right? So being able to tie back the two together and say that in this particular store, I want to store this many items of this particular type, because I know that across both online and offline visits in this geography or in this particular zip code, I have this much demand. And then, of course, on the item and inventory side, right, we have plenty of use cases for AI, which I won't necessarily be able to touch in on this talk, but everything from automatic storage and retrieval systems for the warehouse management, automation in the warehouse. So we have a milk plant in India now where it's essentially fully automated. We have robots, and then we have other deployments of robots like our Basinova robots, which are running around in our stores, trying to essentially take pictures of shelves and looking at whether any particular shelf is at risk of running out of stock, and therefore how soon do we replenish it, right? And so there's lots of cases in supply chain operations, in store operations, specifically targeting item and inventory, where AI can be applied, and we are applying AI quite extensively. And then, of course, in the operations area, right, we have 2.3 million associates in the company across the stores and our home office, just running all of the back office systems, even something as simple as providing shared services for employees to be able to take care of their own questions, right, and being able to deliver those services through a bot kind of implementation. So doing robotic process automation for being able to answer queries. So today, for example, if you take a very relevant example, right, any number of our store associates might be calling in with very specific questions about what sort of social distancing should they be practicing, how often should they be changing their mask. So those are all things that we can essentially deliver through purely online experiences, because otherwise the alternative would be they'd be calling an HR associate, which obviously is very expensive, and it's also going to reduce the quality of service, right? So even on the back office, there are plenty of use cases where AI can be applied very effectively, and we're starting to really deploy it at scale. So that's sort of one dimension of it, right? Which is all the stakeholders or constituencies who can benefit from AI, if you will. The next is to talk about what are the foundational capabilities that we have as a company that we are focused on and developing it, right? So part of that is really broadly classified into three areas: text, images and video, as well as speech, right? Text, I talked about some of the examples, right? Query categorization. When someone puts in a query or a search, how do we understand the intent behind that query? How do we map it as best as we can to what is the intent that the particular user has, and maybe looking at session analysis, looking at personalizing that for that particular user at that moment in time. And all that begins with being able to really use NLP techniques to understand the intent behind the query, to categorize it, to extract the right entities from that query, and to do backend matching, and then being able to apply that to provide the most relevant result. Right? Another example is around summarization for reviews, right? I mean, one of the lifeblood of online sites is customer reviews. Before people buy, they typically look at customer reviews, and they want to see not just the text of the review, but we have to be able to understand the sentiment behind that review. And there was one very good recent example that was posted about a very sarcastic review that someone had posted about Go Indigo, right? And what had happened is this person said, "Gee, you ended up sending me to Bangalore and my luggage to Hyderabad. Thank you, Indigo, for the great experience," right? Wonderful. And of course, there was some bot in the background that looked at this thing and said, "Great experience, thank you," and bubbled it up as a very positive response when clearly it wasn't a positive experience at all. The customer was being very sarcastic about it. And that was actually became a meme of its own, right? So there are lots of cases where if you don't do it right and if you don't understand the intent using deep learning techniques, you could get into trouble, right? And these are foundational capabilities that can be applied across many, many different use cases. Images I talked about, and I'll talk a little bit more in detail about specific use cases around images. I have 2 or 3 examples around that. And then speech and voice, of course, is critical, right? More and more, what we're saying is that voice is going to be the natural way of interacting, not just between customers and the website, but also in our warehouses, for example. We want our operators to be able to really work using voice and using so that their hands are free. They can essentially use a device that's basically essentially hooked to their belt, has a mic, and then basically has a VR/AR glasses, and they can use that to interact and do things like picking in the warehouse. And how do you actually deal with semantic parsing or entity recognition in voice and in conversational and AI, particularly when it's a very noisy environment, right? So a lot of technology has to go in to differentiating the signal between the noise. And so there are lots of use cases where the focus is as much on not just building use cases for specific segments, but also building foundational capabilities that can really help deliver a whole variety of use cases across our business needs. What I'm going to do next is launch into 2 or 3 very specific examples focused on some of these foundational capabilities that I've talked about. And hopefully that'll give you a sense of what it is that we're talking about and how AI is being applied in retail.
Hari, this is Nehanshu, so sorry for coming in. Some participants are complaining about the volume being a little low.
I see. Okay.
Can you speak a little closer to the mic? Might help.
Sounds good. I'll do that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and I'll try and talk louder as well. So the problem that I'm going to talk about now specifically is to do with what we call substitution, right? And specifically, this is in the context of online grocery. Our online grocery business is doing extremely well. In fact, we posted growth in online of 74% in the most recent quarterly results. And the Fortune article that essentially called out our number one position also talked about how we have used technology very effectively to deliver an extremely superior online grocery experience to our customers, right? With NPS scores in the 85+% range. And really the use case is very simple. As a customer, I go into my website. I have a default store that's mapped to me. I order groceries online. I create a basket. And I'm given a delivery window. Within the delivery window, I show up. As soon as I show up in the parking lot of the store, a signal is sent to the associate that I'm there. They've already pre-picked my order. They basically bring that order out into the parking lot or the curbside, and they load up my trunk, and I'm off. Right. So the whole process will take 3 minutes, maybe at most. And particularly in the COVID world, that has turned out to be a boon for our customers because they're not able to come to the stores. They don't want to have people showing up in their homes. So they would much rather order online, but not walk into the store, just have someone load their car and then be off, right? And it's super convenient. It's a big time saver. Now, the thing is, of course, that when they order these products, we have associates in the store who are going through the aisles, picking the items in the order. And one of the big challenges there is when someone orders an item, it may be available at that moment, but by the time the associate picks it, other customers have come into the store and picked the item off the shelf, and we have a situation that we refer to as out of stock, which means that that particular item is no longer available. Now, what do you do in that case? Right? Normally, you would just call the customer and ask them if they would like a substitute and suggest a particular substitute. The problem with that approach is it's hugely expensive. Right? One, it costs a lot of money. Two, the customer may not even be there to take the call at that time. So what we have done is we have determined what sorts of questions to ask them, when do we ask them, how many questions to ask. And there's clearly a trade-off also between the price of a substitute and the customer acceptance rate that presents a challenge, right? So if we determine that we provide an item that, let's say, is priced lower, the customer will assume that, we are trying to sort of make some margin there, or we are suggesting that we're trying to basically make money out of the arbitrage, and that's not the intent. If on the other hand, we typically give them higher price items all the time, then we are leaving money on the table because we're not going to go back and charge the customer that extra difference. So the core of a solution here on the substitution side is based on deep learning, right? And what we do is we use specifically graphical convolutional networks, and we factor in very personalized signals as well as cross-channel signals. So we look at two things, right? What is the propensity for customers to buy certain kinds of substitutes based on which cohort they belong to? So classifying customers into cohorts, looking at what the typical cohort will buy over time, and then also looking at affinity of products itself, right? So what is a good substitute for a particular product that the customer is asked for, and then matching the two together. And so it's essentially a constraint optimization problem as well. And what we try and do is to use this graphical convolution networks along with constraining it by saying that we want to minimize the price difference between the original item and its substitutes. And that what we've seen is that not only has it improved the customer experience and therefore, delivered better value to the customer, but it also helped us minimize the price differential over time. And the way we measure the success of this is by looking at how often is the customer happy with the substitution and they're not returning that item. And that's something that we track very carefully. And over time, we have seen the accuracy and the rate of acceptance of the customer for the substitution to go up, right? And that's a very good sign for us. And obviously the problem of this is really on how do we scale this, right? And how do we deliver this at very large scale across the 250 million touch points every week. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a subsequent slide on how do we actually build infrastructure that will allow data scientists to iterate on their models very rapidly and scale it. The next example I'd like to talk about is something that we talk about specifically to do with image catalog in the e-commerce website, right? Clearly in areas like fashion and apparel, the image catalog is only the visually perceptible medium for customers, right? Unlike in other cases, they can't walk into a store and try it, go to a trial room. So it's extremely important that the quality of the images, the orientation of the images, how do we show different angles of the product, all of those things play a critical role in delivering a superior customer experience, right? So selecting quality images, ordering the images well, normally it's a very tedious process done manually, right? The one approach could be you go and hire tons of people in the back office somewhere, whether that's in a tier 2 location in India or in Philippines or somewhere. But even that doesn't scale over time, right? And it's very error prone. So what you need is an automated solution. So the problem at the very heart of it is that many times when a customer sends you or a seller sends you an image, the image are not oriented correctly. They don't have great textual descriptions. They're not of adequate quality that can be displayed on e-commerce sites. And that can see a huge drop off in conversion, right? So again, here, what we've done is really applied AI and machine learning to this to really improve the quality of what we display in our catalog. And clearly, we don't want to pass this problem off to the sellers because the sellers in many cases are smaller sellers. If you want to really cater to the long tail of sellers, you don't want them to be able to bear the cost, right? You should be able to essentially have them send you whatever images that they can, and then you apply the AI techniques to improve the quality of the images as best as you can. So the slide here walks you through excuse me, the solution in detail, but what we've really tried to do is to solve the problem in a hierarchical framework, right? The first step is to classify the various orientations of the image, and we do that using a convolutional neural network and transfer learning. And we're able to achieve a 94% accuracy in this phase using MobileNet pre-trained embeddings and multi-nominal logistical regression. Right? So that's the first phase, which is really understanding and classifying the orientation of the images. In the second phase, what we do is we have used the process of catalog management by automatically assessing the image quality using a reference image quality assessment, right? So we have a sort of golden reference set of images, and we sort of do matching techniques to say which images match that reference set as closely as possible. And to do that, we use structural similarity measures, right? So we essentially look at the image, break it up into subparts, and we use structural similarity measurement techniques. And here again, we're able to achieve an accuracy of 83% in this phase using ridge regression. So ridges essentially are where you see changes in features of the image, if you will, right? So for example, in a typical video or an image, if you look at it, the place where your face stops and the background starts would ideally be sort of referred to as ridge, right? And so what you do is you use ridge regression and structural similarity indices to essentially compute a score, and then you use that to improve the quality of the images, right? And so what we've done over time by applying these techniques is really use the automatic catalog management as an entire sort of suite of tools which has saved hours of manual effort and human-prone errors, and really efficiently automated the entire process, right, using AI and machine learning. And in fact, this is work that was all done out of our India offices, and we have actually filed a patent on it. And this is something that we're hoping to roll out across all of our websites globally in the coming months. So the next thing that I want to talk about, and I mentioned briefly this, right? One of the big challenges that you see in AI and ML today, and it's very easy to talk about these techniques, if you will, right? I mean, in some sense, these techniques are getting very well documented, and there are even in some cases toolkits available that allows you to apply these techniques fairly quickly. And more, the goal of Walmart and many companies is to really democratize data and data sciences as much as possible. But the reality is really quite different, right? What is happening in reality is that iteration across these models takes a long time. It's a very, very laborious process for data scientists to develop their algorithms and iterate it. And what we have seen is that data scientists, in our experience, spend 80% of their time dealing with the infrastructure and the plumbing and effectively sort of what we call the CI/CD of the models, if you will, right? How do I continuously integrate and deploy the models and take it to production? And only 20% of time doing research on the models and perfecting the models itself. So what we decided to do is to actually invest in a platform called the machine learning platform, or Element. And fundamentally what Element does is it enables a data scientist to perform end-to-end workflow, starting from ingestion of data all the way to pre-processing, feature engineering, hyperparameter tuning, model training and deployment, and moving the model to production, right? And additionally, it also has a feedback system where you can collect data from real-time usage and feed it back into the training model so that you're continuously iterating and improving your models over time, right? And so effectively, if you think about what CI/CD did for improving the agility and velocity of software engineering products, Element will do for data sciences, right? And this is again something that we have invested significant resources in. We're starting to see huge traction of this across Walmart. You see, for example, some of the numbers, right, where we're looking at multiple data sources. We have developed a library of over 700 models and libraries, and we also allow frameworks that can be integrated with this. And the most important thing is that data scientists focus on model building, developing new algorithms, and solving business problems. And all of the so-called dirty work of plugging all of this together and integrating it can be done by this machine learning model, right? And then the two things that are very, very important in this context is, one, we do allow you to plug this model in both an on-prem cloud environment as well as the public cloud environments, whether that's GCP or whether that's Microsoft Azure. And of course, we also make sure that new computing hardware such as GPUs are available out of the box from the model. And what we are now focused on doing is actually ensuring that not only can you develop new models using this, but even for areas where you're not necessarily as focused on machine learning or data sciences, but for example, where you're running optimization problems, right? Classic optimization problems in supply chain. Can we take existing code, whether that's SQL or Java or even other languages, and can we sort of pre-compile it into CUDA that can then be run native on the GPU infrastructure? So developing frameworks that out of the box will be available as part of Element. And again, Element is something that we are looking to actively open source as well. And then the last thing that we're very focused on as a next step in Element, which we're just starting to talk about now, is something that is becoming more and more important to our customers and communities across the globe, right? Which is this whole notion of how do you use AI to ensure that not only are you not perpetuating existing biases, but you're actively removing biases, right? The big problem that you have with almost all of automation is that all of the data that is being used to train these models are highly biased because they are a function of our current environment, which obviously, as we all know, based on recent events across the globe, are not really racially equitable environment, if you will, right? And so can you create checks and balances in the product itself where that's available to you that will actually detect and allow you to flag biases in the model as you go along, right? And what I'd like to do is take the next couple of slides to talk about a specific example, again, using some of the foundational capabilities that I talked about of text extraction from images that we built and deployed completely on Element. And in fact, interestingly enough, this was built by our data scientists based on a use case that came up inside Walmart, but actually got productized by Flipkart first. And Flipkart has now productized this particular example and use case across certain categories. And I'll talk about that use case over the next 2-3 minutes. The use case is very simple, right? This is really about, like I said, a seller uploads an item, and Flipkart, as you all know, is a marketplace. And so they have a lot of third-party sellers. The seller uploads an item to the site. Typically, there's an image describing the product that's up for sale. And there are multiple use cases where you want to do analytics on the image and particularly extract text from the image, right? And the use cases are very simple, right? Obviously, in sometimes sellers try to be cute in order to get eyeballs. They will put profanity in the image or they will put adult content in the images. And clearly, from a brand perspective, that's a huge risk. They may have copyright violations. They may have other brand logos in there, which again, as Walmart, is a big no-no for us. And finally, the most interesting use case that Flipkart is actually using it for now, which is that we detect the location of the product or the seller based on the address. And we use that to flag sellers who are actually in countries where we can't do business, or we can't take sellers from those countries because of sanctions regime that Walmart is in support of, right? So for example, North Korea or Iran, etc., right? So these were some of the use cases that we've used. And what we realized when we were looking for examples like this is that off-the-shelf solutions from Microsoft that's available as part of Azure or Google's Vision API are very expensive at our scale, and they're not accurate enough for our purposes, specifically on some of the images that we had, because the quality of the images are not very high to begin with. So what we did is we used NLP techniques to build a state-of-the-art OCR pipeline by leveraging the work that was being done externally as part of CVPR 2019, which is a paper that was presented. And what we have done is we built a system that actually has that beats external products from Google and Microsoft in terms of accuracy, and also has scaled it pretty significantly, right? And I'll talk a little bit about exactly what the model does. So very simply, right, what we did is we trained the model, we iterated on it using Element, the platform that I talked about. And we use a simple OCR pipeline to categorize the images, right? The first step is, in this example, you look at whether the images has text or not, right? And that's a very first step, which is to be able to recognize that there is text in the image. And that's just a recognition problem. And then what you do is you classify the image as being compliant or not, right? And so in this case, for example, it says made in North Korea. So we recognize that the image is or the product is something that's in North Korea, and that has a brand issue for us. And therefore, like I said, it's in violation of our compliance, and therefore, that's not something that we would like to have in our catalog. Put that way, it's a very simple problem, right? Anyone looking at this T-shirt obviously knows it's made in North Korea, but it's a super hard problem for a machine to be able to figure that out. And so the idea is that what we did is we did two things, right? One, use what we call character region awareness for text detection, right? So there is a framework called the Character Region Awareness for Text Detection, of the CRAFT framework, that was published, as I said, in CVPR 2019, which is designed with a convolutional neural network, producing character region scores. And then it also produces an affinity score. The region score is to localize individual characters, that recognizing that it's at a character level here. And then the affinity score itself tells you what group of characters make a word or a sentence. And then in this particular case, so we extract and call out entities using this combination of a region score and an affinity score, and then a dictionary to say that, okay, this has an entity that very clearly calls out that this is a product that's made in North Korea, and North Korea as an entity has certain attributes associated with it, which is essentially a risk for us. So we built this OCR pipeline and built it to take it into production very quickly using the machine learning platform framework. And the OCR pipeline now can scale significantly to handle millions of images in a given day. And it allows you to accept batch images as well. And it obviously, what we've done is we have also scaled this out using GPU infrastructure to process a very high number of images in a given day, right? Were we to do that manually, it's going to be very tedious, it'll be very error prone, and obviously very expensive. So this is just one more example of not only how we apply AI and use foundational capabilities, but how we are also using frameworks more and more effectively. So in summary, right, what I really want to sort of really re-emphasize is, one, retail has got many opportunities to apply AI and machine learning and deep learning techniques and data sciences, whether it's in the customer domain, in the seller domain, in the operational domain, whether it applies to sourcing, item and inventory, merchandising, and just about any problem in retail that you want to talk about, right? And second, really companies that want to do this and scale it effectively really need to focus on building foundational capabilities and really look at scaling those foundational capabilities over time and ensuring that what you're doing is you're not deploying point solutions, but really building foundational capabilities and using frameworks effectively to be able to then scale this very, very effectively, very quickly. I'll stop here. I know I probably run over a little bit. I don't know, Snehanshu, if you have time for questions. If not, I'll stop sharing and I'll pass it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Hari, for an enlightening presentation on how Walmart is using AI to transform various aspects of its business. Particularly like the point that you made about building foundational capabilities for AI to deliver. It will not happen in a day's time, whether that is to do with technology, building frameworks, or building people capabilities, right? Which indicates that there is a process to it. We deeply appreciate your time on Wednesday afternoon, Hari. Let us see, if time allows, we'll come back and pick up a few questions for you. But here is hoping that we'll have you around for future sessions as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And my apologies for running over a little bit, but hopefully people found it interesting, and do feel free to reach out to me or to other people at Walmart Labs if you have any follow-on questions. Thank you.
Deeply appreciate it. Thank you so much. Well, so I would now like to invite Sangeeta Gupta, Senior Vice President at NASSCOM, to launch the AI Retail Playbook. Sangeeta.
Thank you, Snehanshu, and a very good afternoon to all the participants. Hari, thank you so much for a very, very interesting and insightful presentation. I learned a lot from just the simple examples and the way you explained it. We put together this playbook, as Snehanshu mentioned, in partnership with E&Y and the NASSCOM research team, as well as the Center of Excellence for Data Science and AI. And the objective for us from a playbook perspective is really to help retailers, startups to navigate what are the different opportunities that AI and retail will throw up, particularly in a COVID and a post-COVID world. I think there are numerous opportunities that are now available that people can go out and invest. I think the interest to leverage AI and data sciences is far higher than what we had seen in the past. And I think if applied well, the retail industry can see significant recovery just by making effective use of AI. Just to step back, I think I just wanted to give a brief history of, why did we go down this path? First is really that I think NASSCOM firmly believes that effective data and AI strategy will be a significant contributor for India's growth and recovery in the COVID and post-COVID world. Secondly, there is no one strategy that will fit all types of sectors and all types of companies. And hence it's very, very important that we create a differentiator between what is applicable for the retail sector. If I'm an SMB player in the retail sector, what works for me? If I'm a larger player, what works for me? If I'm an innovator that is building for the retail sector, what are some of the strategies that I could go out and leverage? And NASSCOM would be doing more playbooks by verticals to make that happen. Thirdly, I think the imperative of policy issues is something that NASSCOM is very focused on. So we are very closely engaged with the government and the entire data privacy and data governance framework discussions. And we are hoping that once there is some more time available with the government, we will see some more movement on the entire data protection and privacy bill. So very clearly, this playbook is not just a report for us. It is a plan of action to help enterprises navigate the new normal and to leverage AI to be able to make that real. So thank you, Snehanshu. This playbook will be available to all NASSCOM members. And we would look forward to engage with you on the specific insights that would lie in this playbook.
Thank you so much, Sangeeta. Thank you so much. But since we have you with us today, let me take this opportunity of asking you at least one question.
Sure.
You have been a mentor to this research effort, right? If there's one or two, specific findings that you would like to talk about, which would be of interest to the audience, that would be really, really appreciated.
Yeah. So I think the first one that excited me was really the finding of the extensive survey that was done amongst enterprises in the retail sector on, what do they see the future ahead. And it was interesting to see that almost 60% believe that their business is going to be disrupted. And if they can put together a right data and AI strategy, they can emerge stronger, or they can grow from what's happening today. So I think clearly, the fact that a majority of participants are now aligned to the vision of AI in retail, to me, was one of the most interesting and insightful comments that I heard from the research. I think the second was really the emphasis on all the new business models that are emerging, whether it's about contactless shopping, whether it's about supply chain, the broken supply chains and how AI can help in that, whether it was about how do you do more on-demand forecasting. So I think very interesting use cases. And I think I just want to reiterate that for a retailer who has not started on the AI journey, I think this playbook will help and guide you with saying, how can I get started? So I think it's equally relevant for somebody who is on the journey, who wants to say, how do I create more value? Plus somebody who's not started to say, how do I start my AI journey?
Lovely, lovely. I'm sure there's going to be a rush to download this report. Is this available to everybody?
So it's available for all NASSCOM members and key people who are part of the Center of Excellence on Data Sciences and AI. For the others, there is a minimal price to the report.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, Sangeeta. I've been myself a part of this whole exercise along with the research team and the E&Y team. I can absolutely vouch that there are some fantastic insights that are coming out. Very, very topical. It talks about the impact of COVID-19 in a lot of depth. So I would really implore people to go ahead and look into the executive summary and then also buy a copy for themselves to sort of circulate, right?
And I just want to thank Vijay, who's online from EY, who's been our partner in this research. So.
Can't agree more. Thanks, Vijay, so much. Lovely. So thank you. Thanks so much, Sangeeta. The fact that you could join us today, this afternoon, it helped us really, and look forward to having you around for future sessions as well. With that, let me, introduce the first of the two panel discussions. Delighted to have Shrikripa Srinivasan with us to moderate the first of the two sessions. Shrikripa is the Vice President at Dell Global Analytics. She brings with her more than 25 years of diverse experience in finance and leadership in various industry sectors, and she has worked both with local and global assignments. The topic of the discussion really is around analyzing the impact of COVID-19 on retail and the need for innovation. So welcome, Shrikripa, and with that, let me hand it over to you to take this discussion forward. Shrikripa, you are probably on mute.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, very well.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Snehanshu, and thank you, NASSCOM, Madhav, Supriya, and everybody who organized this at in these unprecedented times. Fantastic to see a very relevant forum of this sort being organized, and great to see so much participation. So thank you, NASSCOM, and Snehanshu, and Madhav, Supriya, and a bunch of others who made this happen. The topic, as Snehanshu said today, is analyzing the COVID-19 impact in retail and the need for innovation. We heard a lot from Hari in terms of some areas of innovation on AI, ML, and what they're doing, and the fact that it is not limited to a normal world, but in the current world, maybe much more relevant. I have the privilege of introducing a great panel today who's going to answer some of our questions on this subject. So without much ado, I will jump in and introduce Hari Subramaniam. Hari Subramaniam is currently in Hyderabad. I do hear the weather is slightly different from Bangalore right now in Hyderabad. So there is a lot of thunders and stuff like that we are anticipating in Bangalore shortly. So we might be on the same page, Hari.
Yes, that's true.
Hari is the managing director at Colruyt India, and he's had a long TCS stint before this, and has had some fabulous assignments that he has been involved in as far as Colruyt is concerned. It's a family business which headquarters at Belgium. They are food and grocery leaders in that market. It's a overall 10 billion plus kind of an organization, and so really decision makers as far as this area of the industry is concerned. So retail is a thick piece where Hari is very deeply involved. They're also the Spar franchisee in that region. Hari did say that besides this, he also takes care of asset and equity management for this business. Indeed a wide portfolio. Welcome, Hari, on board, and happy to have you here sharing with the panel.
Thank you, Shrikripa.
I also want to invite Raju Karupanan. He's the director and head of AI, ML, data science, big data analytics, and innovation labs at Manhattan Associates. He's had some fantastic background in terms of work at Rolta, at Oracle, HP, and for Dell, a favorite Teradata too. So so we like Teradata. So we obviously, Raju was a very, very interesting panel that we member that I want to introduce. He's been around in Manhattan for about 6+ years, and a long stint at Oracle of about 11 years, I think, is part of what he has spent his time in. HP another 4 years. So he's had a fairly robust career and background in the big data and the way we have grown in the country. Welcome on board, Raju. Look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Supi. Thank you.
We've heard the name of Vijay a couple of times. Snehanshu said so. I think Hari called his name out too. We heard from Sangeeta, so not a new name in the discussion right now. It's a pleasure to invite Vijay Shankar from ENY. He's a partner, intelligent automation leader at Ernst& Young. He's been around in Ernst & Young for 17 plus years, and in the area of digital transformation in various different ways, consultant in various different ways. 5 years plus he's been a digital transformation leader itself. He's worked with NASSCOM in the previous the retail playbook that Sangeeta just released. Besides that, he's also had cross-functional sort of exposures and impact in our industry and various industries in financial services, healthcare, and automotive industries, and you name it. Welcome on board, Vijay.
Thanks, Srirupa. Thanks for inviting me into the session.
Right. The way we wanted to sort of go about today's discussion was basically sort of to go through the COVID-19 impact as far as we are looking in the country and in all our organizations. So I'd go first with you, Vijay. You've spent very detailed time as far as this retail playbook is concerned. How about sharing with us? First of all, am I audible and clear?
Yes,
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, good. So thank you. So Vijay, why don't you share with us the challenges of retail enterprises in COVID-19 times? I mean, I come from a background where there is a fair amount of discussion happening on the challenges we are having, but you get to see a cross section of views where you are. Can you share with us some of the big challenges retail enterprises are facing in these particular unprecedented times?
Sure. Well, thanks for that question. I think it's a very pertinent and important question at this time. And maybe before I get into the COVID response, maybe I'll touch back, go back a little bit around, from a retail perspective, digital transformation has never been, it's not a new subject. I mean,
right.
Retail is one of the first sector, if I would say, after financial services got disrupted because of digital transformation quite heavily. A decade back, in e-commerce and stuff like that. Right? Digital transformation is not new for retail industry. If you really think about in terms of where really retail organizations were focusing on, as part of digital, right? And three areas that kind of stand out, and I'll kind of link it back into pre and post-COVID scenario, so you'll kind of see what that impact is, and some of it kind of continues as well. It doesn't change, right? So you'll see that as an impact. So if you think about three areas that kind of stands out for large retailers, the first one is hyper personalization, right? Retailers had to kind of focus on trying to sell products and services to individuals at what they want, rather than trying to now classify and bring them group them together, etc. Right? A huge focus on hyper personalization has been in the market for quite some time, and either is the brick and mortar retail shops or even the e-commerce retailers have been focusing on, say, how can I get very specific, both from a marketing perspective as well as product that I can go and sell to an individual. So hyper personalization has been a big topic, and I think it will just change over, because personalization means it's evolving, right? Because someone who's buying stuff today will not be the same person who's buying tomorrow. His buying patterns will change, the way that he will look at it will change. And again, you can compare this as pre and post-COVID as well. The second, I think a lot of retailers have been focusing on is really what I would call as data monetization, right? You can see telcos doing a lot of that stuff. And I think retailers have similar kind of opportunities as well, because they're sitting on wealth of data, consumer data, product data, and a lot of principals or consumer product companies are eyeing for the data. They want that data because that's how they can build better products, bring better strategies to clients. So one of the key things was around the data monetization. How can retailers really use the data to drive efficiencies and performances and really move up the value chain, right? I know in terms of saying, if you're able to bring in or kind of take all the information that's available, you know, a 360-degree of view of a consumer, 360-degree view of a retail outlet, right? And then bring all that information across and, you know, and really kind of monetize and bring it to the sellers, right? I think that will transform the way that retails will do. And I think that's still a journey. It's not been something that's been coming up, right? The third one, I think, really in terms of how do you really improve consumer experience, right? The brick and mortar retailers are really been focusing on saying, how can I give an online experience in an offline store, right? You know, no one wants to stand in long lines anymore. Everyone wants to go pick up the right product at that time, spend lesser amount of time in really shopping. And I really look at Walmart and what Hari just talked about earlier as well. You know, everybody wants to just come and pick up the products and go. No one wants to walk through the aisle and stuff like that, right? So how do you really give an online experience in offline stores? And similarly, how can you get an offline experience for online stores? So that again question that we just talked about. You know, someone wants to try a dress, right? In an offline store, you can just try that. Now again, post-COVID, things will change, but someone can try. You get a good touch and feel. But if it's an online store and you got like fashion and products, how do you really touch and feel that product? And if you can't touch and feel the product, you're not able to, you know, get consumers to buy. So I think both ways there's a great learning of online and offline stores or retailers trying to kind of get that. And I think technology plays a very, very important role in bringing this. Now, if I try and link this now into a COVID era, and a COVID kind of got at least the retailers to a grinding halt, right? The footfalls in retails have kind of come to a significant stop. I was talking to one of our clients. They said it's almost like a 95% stop for at least non-essential products retailers. Essential product retailers, they still have fairly good footfalls coming in. But really, if you look at fashion, if you really look at luxury products, watches and stuff like that, all of these are getting impacted significantly. But food and groceries that we just talked about, some of the panel members here are essential products. Some way or the other they will, but they are moving more. They're changing the operating model, the business model, to be more online friendly than what it is, right? A US retailer that we've been working back as well is kind of starting to think to say, putting a lot more effort on online rather than offline, right? So kind of making sure the products are made available and stuff like that. I think the important aspect for retailers, and especially the brick and mortar, is to build the footfalls back into the market. Now, if that doesn't happen, demand doesn't get generated. If someone's going to an online to a website, he's very focused. He's only going to buy that one product and come back. But when he is going to a retail shop, he's looking around. There's a way that he buys products around, right? He's walking across, if it's a mall and stuff like that, they're walking around, that generates demand, right? So it's going to be really important for retailers to focus on bringing footfalls back in the post-COVID era, and use of technology is going to be important, whether the social distancing, compliance requirement, a lot of use cases that will come up in terms of bringing that back. And I also think that large retailers have a very important role, because if you think about malls and stuff, right? And a lot of our businesses and retail businesses are based on malls, right? And all of the malls will have one single large form retailer holding space, right? If you take a Carrefour kind of an example, or Tesco kind of an example, or even if you take a Shoppers Stop kind of an example, right? They all have the premier retailer.
Yeah.
Because people or consumers are coming to that retailer shop, they are able to kind of create demand for other retail stores as well, because that's the attraction, right? Now, if that retail stores do not happen, people don't come to that retail shop, it impacts a variety of, other retailers as well. So bringing back the demand and using technology and AI to drive, I think is going to be super duper important. And I think if the footfalls don't increase, the consumerization does not increase, I think there's going to be a significant impact. The second, I think, post-COVID is about supply chain. We all know supply chain has been significantly impacted around it. Factories or even last mile. There are a variety of challenges that are there. one of our clients that we're talking about, even if one link in supply chain is broken, the entire supply chain is broken. Yeah, you cannot get anything out in the market, right? So it's so important to make sure your supply chain is very, very well connected. I think use of technology again, AI is going to be super important. We're seeing a number of use cases emerging there to kind of build more resilient supply chain in the market, whether bringing essential products or whether it is trying to drive connect the different retailers together, right? I think there's still a lot more work to do on that, and I think in a country like India, which is we've got number of pin codes across all levels, etc. It's not going to be easy, right? It's not going to be easy. I think technology has a huge role, and AI will play a huge role in that as well. The last point I'll make on the post-COVID challenges that companies will face is to kind of bring the entire SMB market together. We've seen what Reliance is doing with the JioMart, interventions, and I'm sure there are other initiatives that even government is doing to connect that back. I think there is a number of challenges around how do you really get that market, because if you think about 80% in India, retail is unorganized, right? It's about 20% is actually organized. Now, all of the points that we just talked about is all focusing on the 20%.
Right.
India really needs to bring that up. You need to get that 80% up and running, and they have a number of challenges around, right? In terms of they can't connect back with the consumers directly. There's a lot of challenges around for them to manage working capital, manage cash flows, and all the stuff, interest rates and stuff like that, right? But how do you really get AI and technology to support the SMB market? I think that's going to be very important. We've also been working back with companies around helping them to build more, solutions for the retailers or the SMB retailers to come on board on the digital journey, right? They're able to place orders and they're able to digitally, manage their operations. So I think that's going to be a good area, and I think needs to kind of come around if companies have to bring that. And I think Sangeeta talked about and Snehanshu talked about as well. The report that NASSCOM and EY, along with the Center of Excellence for AI and Digital Science or Data Science, published, I think touches upon a number of these areas in terms of how retailers need to respond to from a COVID standpoint, what kind of use cases that are emerging, what kind of technology platform, and what are leaders doing in that space, and what are some of those experiences. I think a lot of detail that has been touched upon on those areas, and I think that will be very interesting for companies to read and take that forward.
Thank you, Vijay. That was a very, very comprehensive and robust answer to the challenges, and it brings me to a good segue to the next question that I had for Hari. Vijay, believe me, all of us are desperately want to get to the malls, and we're satisfying ourselves with lots of other methods right now. So there is other way the demand also needs to get back. I'm going to move to Hari now and ask him, saying that given all the challenges that Vijay just called out, can you share with us, how are we bringing resilience in the retail operations, given all the challenges that we have in front of us, and Vijay called out most of them.
Yeah, thank you, Shri Kripa, and Vijay, I'll take it forward from that. First is a black swan event is a real test for a company's resilience strategy, and that's something which is really come in front of us. And COVID has really changed many things, the way we live and shop and we travel and we work, pretty much everything it has changed. I think we can see it from our own individual perspective, right from us, how the changes are in the last few months. And this collective change is what is going to reflect at a global level and what's going to further percolate into the businesses. And it's going to be a reflection of that. Yes, this event has certainly created a lot of hardships, a lot of challenges, a lot of unfortunate events, which is no doubt about that. But also has created a lot of opportunities as well, And a very big one is even, it's also, because today we are talking about retail. Um, Even for retail companies and for many companies, I believe until a lot of years back, we all used to use the word about our digital journey and digital transformation. I think this has, in my personal opinion, this will enable many organizations, including retailers, to cut down their transformation journey by 2 to 4 years, if not more. That's my personal view. I think that's really what really resilience means for me. An event like this, how it could really play a big role in your transformation. And here, the topic is very relevant. What our team, NASSCOM team, has chosen is, I think, the next part of the panel will even dwell more into that, on how AI will play a role in that. It's very clear that. Yeah, I think it's very simple. We can say it's the cliche words of adaptability, flexibility, and agility. They're all given. I think they're all really given for us. I think we have to go further from that. And that's where the technology is going to play a very big role. Um, and for me, there is no one solution or a holy grail to solve this. I think it depends on every organization's maturity on how they're going to bounce back, and then how they're going to address this. So I would put this whole business resiliency in three part in the journey. One is the immediate situation, what we are in today. It also needs a different level of acting it. Today it's more about how do you cope up, and then even for many retailers, it's also how you survive. I think it's really a very important aspect. And move from here to next, as we are slowly evolving to the near term. How are they going to bounce back, and how they're going to stay relevant? That's going to be an existential crisis for many retailers. And in the long term, it's a transformation. So I put this into three categories. How you cope up with your immediate situation that we are faced with today. And again, it's very different for very different retailers. You can put the retailers in essential category and non-essential category. It's very different for different retailers. And even within that, you have another segment of retailers who really dealing with the consumer durables. The invest category. That's a very different ball game. So for me today, we are part of the essential services. So we are facing a very different challenge on how to run the business operations. But we also have a non-food business, which is very different. It's a totally different challenge to deal with the non-food. So if I put all this into different things, I would really pick few things, Vijay, from you, what you said. I will put them into three different buckets, if you will. The first part is really the resiliency is also on the customer part. I think that's where the biggest change is going to come from. You all dwelled upon, it's clear that the behavior is changing completely. The customer behavior is changing. Their expectations are changing. Their experience are changing. What do we really mean by in-store experience in the future? I think it's really going to change. An in-store experience today for the moment is about wearing masks, and then are we being hygiene? Nobody's bothered about anything else when you get into the store today. And for a retailer like us, where we are a large food and grocery retailer, and same could hold good even for Hari Vasudev, like a Walmart kind of a company, many one. Typically, if you put, if you have two axes, you have on one side you have your customer experience, and the other side you have your operational efficiency. By and large, a lot of retailers, they pick and choose between one spectrum. Either they focus on the customer experience, or they focus on the operational efficiency. And especially the large retailers have focused on operational efficiency. Slowly, they are moving towards the center, but not the other extreme. To stay relevant. But people who have been focusing traditionally on the customer experience, I think they really found it very difficult to stay relevant in the market. So they really have to get their operational efficiency back on it. But this situation for me has really changed for the business, where I think everybody has to go back to the start. Start really with the customer experience, and then work out the whole operational experience. Operational efficiency is a part of it. It's a different change in thinking for the businesses. Start with that, work out your operational efficiency. So So the first part is going to be really the how you tackle with the business respond to the situation that we have today with the customer experience. It's each and every one of us today we may face. Today we order and the online is forgiven today. That's going to stay for a much longer time. There is no doubt about that. And where the technology for me comes in, or it depends on if I have to take a parlance from the COVID curve. If your digital AI journey is pre-lockdown, then you have a long catch up to do it. Or if you're somewhere between post-lockdown to the peak curve, then I think you are really could respond to it lot faster. So it really depends on what is the maturity of the organization you are in today to really respond to this. But it's imperative that you have to start with the customer experience. And maybe there could be new business models may emerge where you may have to look at some clusters, delivery clusters, servicing clusters, where you may have to look at it where you don't have to go for every time one pickup. You don't want to go and pick up for 10 different times when you're working and then there are 10 different deliveries coming. You have to tell your people a story, you have to go and pick up. I think these things have to really evolve and change. There is a delivery cluster where you're able to go, and these are the changes what really I expect to really the retailers to focus on. And with so much of cost consciousness even coming in the near future, I think maybe the brand value is going to be questioned. Probably there will be more private labels coming into the market. It's also where they're also looking for private label, and also more important is also what is the quality, health as per health and well-being. I think both will all this going to come. So for me, all this comes in the first pillar of the business has changed from a customer experience and the customer behavior point of view. And the second one is where Vijay, you touched upon the supply chain aspects and everything. I put that all into the financial resilience. I really put it as a financial resilience. Actually, if you are today in leadership or a CFO running a non-food, guys, I'm really be with you. I can't imagine the kind of complexity you guys are going to go through. A declining revenue stream, just no liquidity, no access to new capital, and then you're still not sure when you're going to start it, and then your expenditure is something continuing beyond. Guys, I think we really have to see fundamentally, how this is really going to fix it. I think it's going to be really an existential crisis for many retailers. It may sound very terrible, but I think that's what we are faced with. It's a difficult one. I think that's where the technology is going to play a role in AI or your data maturity, what you have, looking at your supply chain, looking at your inventory. Our summer is done. Your stock of inventory from the summer, and then summer is done. Now your customer needs something new. What are we going to do with this inventory turnover? I think it's going to be difficult. I think these are the immediate changes. What really has to come in immediately from an financial resilience point of view. And the third bit is a very small one, but a very critical, important one, is also about the talent, about your own talent and your coworker, which we really can't ignore, unless we are going to build and trust and then make them more involved in the organization. I think even we have to reskill them. A lot of our coworkers have to be reskilled to tackle the situation, and then create an environment of where they really feel a belonging. I think all these three aspects are going to be quite important, and then they will be in different levels. Today how you do in the near term and the long term, I think it's going to be very different. There, I really believe that AI can play a role. It's not that it's going to solve everything, but it has a very important role to play. So that's my just thoughts on how I look at the resiliency, Shri Kripa.
Shri Kripa, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I lost Hari towards the end. Hey, thank you, Hari. Thank you. I think that was again a very robust answer. Are you able to hear me, Srihanshu?
Yes. Now we can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, so I was just laughing, saying Vijay said things like watches and stuff like that. I said, what are you talking about? I can't even imagine going and buying a watch at this point, because we are just not out of basics. I think this is a fantastic time to sort of move on to our third speaker and talk about a little more positive stuff. Raju, can you share with us about the just a segue from here, creating opportunities in a post-COVID era using innovation?
Sure. So first of all, thank you, Hari Vasudev and Hari Subramaniam as Vijay. for setting up the stage for my topic. So basically, in this
Raju, sorry for the interruption. Can you turn on your video? We can't see you.
so somehow it's not coming out. I don't know why.
Oh,
I
okay.
the last few minutes, I don't something I changed it.
No problem. Please carry on.
So with all the stage, okay, set for the latest technology or innovation needed for the current to address the current challenges and then the need of innovation. So as a as a technical side, we need to at least as a developer, we don't write a program for results at the AI and ML paradigm. So we write a program for the patent, try to find the pattern within the data set. So that's what we are trying to do at the moment. So this involves a lot of innovation in terms of writing the new also the identifying the different areas like virtual mirrors. So because we don't want to visit the stores and then touch some of the shelves, or even we don't want to step out of the home with this situation. So how can I leverage the current AI and ML along with the other technologies? How can I do that? And the second thing is voice and image, okay, search technologies. And then third is for building a AI-based conversational engine, or especially for the inventory demand forecast, and also for the prediction management. So this is applicable the stores as well as at the warehouse, and then for DCs. And then for shopping with the A and AR, also for same day delivery as well. So in addition to that, the last point is, so what I'm thinking is, in addition to that, okay, how can you do the flexible shopping? And that's also for payment, for seamless return policies. So these are the some of the latest trends. So what we can see, so based on the current trend. So with that, so now I'm going to touch upon that for a few use cases, especially using for AML. So how can I leverage the augmented reality, and how can I give the actual physical experience? I mean the presence of the feel when somebody walk into the stores without walking over there. So with that, so it's actually it's represent actually 3D representation of an object and when it uses for AI technologies. So this involves so basically 3 steps. The first one is okay, take an image from the scene and run the data through the model. And third is for use the model output to trigger the efforts within the scene. So within this for 3 steps, so where I can leverage the AI and ML as well as for AI technologies. So there are plenty of some libraries are available, especially Arcade for Arcore. So that's that SDK is available for the developers to develop programs. So along with that, so if I combined with this for uh, some of the specific deep neural network algorithm, so that will help us to give the actual feeling of walking in the store. So this is the one which is a really, no, according to me, so that's going to be the super hit in the market. So, so based on this AI combined with the AI, or okay, many product or applications are getting developed at the moment. And the first second thing is, especially for the visual search, so there are a lot of algorithms. So depends on the data sets or the depends on the requirement. But especially when you use this for CNN, convolutional neural network along with the VGG net. So that is giving a high output and high accuracy for the customers. So because okay, customer doesn't want to type a query or speak sometime. So instead of that, he upload an image. So based on the image pattern, color, texture, the stuff like that, the systems or the application automatically search and give an exact match. So these two are the top, areas where I see there is a lot of traction is going to come. And third thing, and the other thing is, so so especially for the dynamic availability forecasting and the buy optimization, allocation optimization, and also for the plan optimization, for the fulfill optimization. So there are a lot of optimization techniques needed at the moment. So that's many players are already doing. However, while doing, there are a lot of challenges in terms, if I run the, if I had to run the earlier optimization, how can I reuse those? Some part or some are part of the results at the in the current run, because okay, that can save my computing power. So that can reduce the hardware cost. So these are the areas where the focus can be. So that will lead to, so there are 3 or 4 areas, okay, so where we can focus on. So having said that, so especially in the AML world, so we'll try to write or we try to build a model for our solutions or our need. So instead of that, there are a lot of, okay, nowadays, if you look at the web or elsewhere or GitHub, you can see, okay, there are pre-trained models are available already. So that really reduces the developers' effort. So we can consume those models or pre-trained model, okay, build our application on top of it or build the wrapper on top of it. So that's a first thing. And the second thing is, especially for the AML area, the main important topic is for the data. So as Harry also mentioned, that the data governance and the data availability also make the data seamlessly available to the AML developers. So with the high quality of the data. So this is the one of the other area we can focus on. And third thing is, so based on my experience, so there are plenty of tools, techniques available to build a data lake for the end user community or the ML community to access or. Here's my study table. Here's my study.
Go ahead, Raju.
Please carry on, Raju.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, Raju.
Yes, Raju, we can hear you. We can hear you. Yeah.
So based on my past 20 plus years of the database side work experience, so what I've seen is, so with the huge data sets coming from the different live devices, so having the data cleansing and then loading into our data lake and then make it seamlessly, make it available to the AML development community is a other area where we can focus on. So these are some of the opportunities or the challenges. So what I've seen at the moment. So having said that, so there are top 3 areas where we can say that, okay, data growth, and with that data growth, so we can say where cloud maturity also to adopt those, to accommodate those data growth. And third is for maturity of the algorithms. For example, if we see in the past, okay, especially for the voice search, right, voice recognition systems. So in the past to the present at the moment, there are a lot of improvisations happened in those algorithms. So to summarize the moment, so a lot of innovations are happening in terms of the leveraging the current AML technologies in addition in combining with the AR and some other technologies. So this is what at the moment. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Raju. Thank you, Raju. There is clearly a lot that we can do once this COVID thing is over, and clearly a lot of opportunity out there. I'd like to quickly sum up. This has been a very, very informative panel that we've had. I won't take too much time. There's another panel right now, so I'll quickly try to sum up a lot of words of wisdom out here, which is there in my paper. We start with Vijay, who spoke about the new environment where we have challenges, where there is hyper personalization kind of thing happening. Everything is an online experience, and everything has to be very, very dear to the way I want it. So that's one of the big challenges that all the retail industry is facing. Then he spoke about data monetization. There is a wealth of data lying out there. How do I use it well? He spoke about building demand back. He emphasized on working on the supply chain robustness. He also spoke about how we need to spend time on the SMB sector, 80% being in the unorganized sector, and how we need to put time, and we are putting time on that. We had Hari, who spoke about creating opportunities at these times. He spoke about the fact that transformation is getting expedited. What would have taken 5 months last year, we're possibly doing it in a month now. He spoke about the regular stuff in terms of adaptability and flexibility and things like that. But he did speak about the fact that in organizations today are looking at 3-4 zones in which they are trying to sort of work themselves out. What is the immediate need? How do I survive? For some of us, how do I sort of bounce back? And and then said that obviously online is here to stay. Do we build new business models? All the method of delivery in terms of the way we're doing is going to change. He did emphasize towards the close on our talent pool and how do you trust and build them, keep them involved, reskill if required, and things like that. We had Raju, who spoke about the fact that overall the technology environment needs to change if we need to come out of it. He spoke about search technology, he spoke about image technology, he spoke about dynamic inventory forecasting, he spoke about same day delivery, he spoke about how do we grow our data maturity, how we grow our workload maturity. He spoke about algorithm maturity too. So wealth of information in this A4 sheet of mine, which I'm going to hold on very dearly. And so thank you, panelists. It is fantastic having you here. And again, thank you, NASSCOM, for organizing this.
Can I just try and slip in a question that has come in? Any one of you can just take a stab at it. I think it's a very straightforward and important one for us to ask. Let me just turn on my video. The question is, with all said on innovation and adoption of technology as the forefront to overcome the impact created by the COVID situation, the whole automation process may create some job opportunities. But on the other hand, will this also not increase the unemployment for the ones whose profiles will get replaced by the automation being done by AI, ML, etc.?
I'll give my opinion on that. For me, this is not a question just because of COVID. This has been a question which has been there it's an ethical question, which has been there, a social question for a while now. I think how we look at as a retailer, how we look at, I can share my experience in our company. Yes, it's clear that there are certainly a lot of opportunities today to automate, and certainly that has an impact on our workforce. I think it is part of you build in your change strategy, transformation, where you really take that into account. If you're going to look at coworker as a commodity, then it's really a challenge. But if you look at coworker as your asset, then I think you really take that into account in your planning upfront, that when you're really going to automate the processes, then we really ensure that those end users, we have a plan on what to do them, redeploy them elsewhere, how you can reskill them. So yes, if you look at it just as a transaction, it is an issue. But if you look at it as a transformation, then I think the co-workers are taken into as a part of that. So yes, so it's not a question for me today. It's a question which has been there for a while today with respect to automation. Okay. Just my view, but Vijay Shrikripa, just take a shot at it. Yeah, Raju.
No, I agree as well. History has always taught us that technology does not lead to job losses. Maybe there are momentary changes. Everybody thought when computers came in, it will all change everything and people will not have work. I mean, we all know we are a lot more working in a day than what our parents did, right? 9-to-5 jobs, but we are almost pretty much working full time. But I think jobs will change. I think that I guess is a critical part. Yeah. Jobs will change. I think that's what is going to drive. I think the topic about reskilling and getting ourselves ready for the next level type of work, I think that's going to be important. But short term, it's always looked at a loss of job, but long term, I think it'll all bring newer opportunities.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I have nothing more to add on that, Sneha. I think it's your readiness to reskill. I don't think there'll be job losses.
So if you ask me from AML perspective, I think Hari Vasi also said at the initial stage that, okay, especially for building a pipeline CACD using CACD, so we need a whole lot of automations needed over there. So that time, so if someone doing it manually today, so if you are trying to automate with CI/CD or CI/CD pipeline or doing something else, so that gives an opportunity for him to pick up something else as well as he can go to the next level of innovation. He can do that, right? So that's what. So especially this given opportunity for them. So not for employment. That's my take on this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So thanks everybody for this session. It was indeed enlightening, and we are hoping to have you around for future sessions with us. Thanks for your time indeed. So
Thank you
we are
so
running a
much.
little behind time today. So my apologies to the next panel who has been waiting to be introduced. Let me lose no further time than quickly introduce the next panel discussion. I would like to introduce to you Altaf Patel. Altaf is the Global Transformation Director for Tesco Business Services, and he will be the moderator for the second panel. Very quickly, to just let you know about Altaf, he's responsible for driving the business transformation agenda across Tesco's business services centers globally, which is UK, India, and Central Europe. He is responsible for building and running change capabilities such as solution design and transition, digital transformation, very importantly, people-led continuous improvement, as well as recovery audit. So welcome, Altaf. My apologies that we are running a little behind time, but let us hand it over to you for the session.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Snehanshu. I hope everyone can hear me. And I think we'll see how we can speed things up as well. I would request my panelists to also make themselves visual and turn on their videos. So firstly, thanks NASSCOM for setting up this session. I think as retailers coming together on a common platform, that doesn't happen as such, but I think it's good that we've been brought onto a common platform and discussing a very important issue as well. And would like to thank Hari from Walmart for sharing really insightful perspective, and likewise also the previous panel in terms of giving an overview of what are the COVID implications when you look at retail as an industry. I think we are living in a VUCA world. I mean, if anybody thought about let's prepare for the VUCA world, this is the VUCA world. And everyone's experiencing the volatility or the uncertainty, complexity, and the ambiguity in terms of how to manage their businesses. And I think more and more what's going to be important is how companies can become more agile, more creative, can become problem solver, can be way closer to the customers in building those propositions. And I think that's where we want to really look at how AI can come to the party. So in terms of the introduction, thanks Snehanshu for the introduction. I'm not going to do the justice that Shripika did for the previous panel. I'm going to let my panelists introduce themselves. We'll go with Ganesh, Abhay, and Shinam, just quickly giving a quick introductions, guys. That would be helpful. Ganesh?
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Ganesh Subramanian. I'm the founder and CEO of Stylumia. We are a deep tech fashion startup from Bangalore. I've been in the fashion lifestyle retail for 20 plus years, walked through all of offline retail and online retail, and that's a bit about myself.
Abhay, you want to go next?
Sure. Thank you so much, Altaf. Hi, everyone. My name is Abhay. I'm the director and head of Lowe's Innovation Labs, which is the innovation entity for Lowe's, Fortune 50 home improvement retailer, or Fortune 50 retailer, and the second largest home improvement retailer in the world. That's a little bit about me.
And Shinam as well.
Hi everybody, I'm Shinam Mori from Dell Digital at Dell Technologies India. Currently playing the role of mobility and data engineering for all of Dell. Partner very closely with my friend Shri Kripa. Kripa, you did an awesome job in panel 1. Have been with Dell for 3 years. Prior to that, I was with Infosys for a couple of years, and before that, SAP and Oracle.
Great, good stuff. Thanks, Shinam. So we'll get going with in terms of our panel conversation and discussion. I guess the way we wanted to structure this panel is more to give a feel from within each of the companies as to how they've approached the AI journey, how they've gone about developing certain use cases, and at the same time, what do they think is really important to set up AI as a capability within the companies as well. So we'll focus on that as a part of the panel discussion. I certainly want robust answers from all of you, but short, keep it short and snappy as well. And that way, I think we can kind of get a lot more perspective. So my first question to all the panelists is, how do you kind of look at AI as an opportunity yourself when you think about retail context in mind? And at the same time, how is AI applied in your organization, right? How's that journey been? So can we go with Abhay, Shinam, and then Ganesh, just to kind of share your perspective, guys?
Sure. Thank you so much, Altaf. In my perspective, when I've even listening to the previous panel, I was just listening to this aspect about the different opportunities that are being created and the focus between operational efficiency versus customer engagement, right? And I think AI, I read somewhere that as if we talk about data being the new oil, then basically AI is the new jet fuel, right? I mean, that's something that I heard and I found it amusing, but that's the truth today, right? So in fact, you must have seen that a lot of retailers today, they talk about very, very impressive results when it comes to deploying AI projects. But one of the things that is lacking is that, some of these projects are all in silos, right? So, or basically some of them are in silos, and that's why you do not see a continuity of the AI application across the overall value chain of retail, right? From sourcing to supply chain, logistics, distribution, to consumer engagement, including omni-channel and so on and so forth, right? So the whole loop is not always together, and that's where I think most of the retailers are trying to get there, where they can call themselves as a complete and robust AI company. When I talk about Lowe's as well, in the current situation, if I look at my last quarter results, our results have been really interesting, really good. More than 80% increase in our digital sales, overall more than 12% comp growth as well, right? And that's been reflective of the investment that we have made in technology such as AI, and ensured that we have been strengthening that infrastructure as well from every aspect, right? So that we can ensure to provide the right kind of seamless experience and frictionless experience to our consumers as well as our internal associates. So that's been our journey. As you mentioned, Altaf, to keep it short, I'm going to do that.
We'll pass on. Shinam, and then Ganesh, would be good to share your perspectives as well.
Okay. Thank you, Altaf. I think from a Dell Digital and a Dell Technologies perspective, right? We use AI in various zones, not just retail, but also in supply chain. We're using a lot of AI in legal, in fraud compliance, in data governance. So there is a humongous opportunity, in my opinion, around the industry to use AI. One of the use cases that I can talk about, which we recently implemented, was looking at a bill and figuring out whether there has been some tampering that has been done on it. Looking at a claim and figuring out if this was a duplicate claim or not, just by looking at an image and understanding the dynamics of the image, right? It goes on to save a lot of money for the organization. If you look at AI in retail, we are applying it both at the storefront and at Dell.com, which is our portal for our retail mainstream. So there is a lot of focus that is there on AI within the organization.
Yeah, thanks, Shinam. Thanks, Shinam. Let me, before I move into how Stylumia looks at solving problems for fashion brands and lifestyle brands, retailers globally, I see that every leap of mankind has happened through a lift in intelligence. I think when we talk about AI, we are actually talking about intelligence. And AI, in my view, does two things. One is helps you automate, and it helps you adapt. We can't have a better time than to do both of this, right? Now, we really need to automate, and we really need to adapt. Adapt is more, and then automate, I would say, because it's a constantly changing environment. And in the COVID condition, even without that, and in the industry I'm talking about, things are so fast moving, that you really need to adapt. Adapt and automate is a key thing. And, if I have to just maybe give you a very high level construct for people to look at, how do I look at adopting AI? And then I quickly come to what Stylumia does to enable this. If you just have two axes, one is the impact axis, and the y-axis is the frequency of occurrence of the event. So if you just see, where do I apply AI? I think look for events in your company which have high impact to the company and high frequency of occurrence, right? Or you have a low impact and low frequency. You actually avoid that. Either medium impact and medium frequency, or a high impact and high. Therefore, I think you choose, first of all, the problem to solve. And that's how we chose a problem to even create Stylumia. I think it all originated from my previous company, Myntra. I was a CEO of Myntra before starting this up. And there we actually asked how fashion industry runs globally. It's very subjective decision making. Just to give you a number, 150 billion garments are made in 2018 globally, and 50 billion garments never sold a single piece, and 50 billion sold at discount. And fashion is the second most carbon footprint industry in the world, right? So we are all making and dumping products finally. We make something which customers don't want, lower than the probability of a coin toss. Now that's a problem that we are solving for global fashion, lifestyle brands, and retailers.
Okay.
So what we do is we help enable demand prediction for any brand retailer anywhere in the world. We do work with Fortune 100 companies, just 4 years, 4 months old, and so much to cover. So where I'm coming from is, I think the area to look at is demand understanding. In a constantly flux environment, demand understanding in an area one could look at, it's agnostic of any industry. Look at demand understanding, look at demand prediction, and also look at demand fulfillment, right? Everything is user driven, consumer driven. How can you use data to do this? Not just depending on your own data. So just look at it, because your own data is a function of what you have done. What you have not done, you have no intelligence of. I think the question that I just want to pose to everybody is, even first question, what data are you even optimizing on? If you're optimizing your own small pool, then you're very, very limited, because consumer gets the world of data. Now with that, I'll pass on to Altaf to take it further.
Thanks, Ganesh and others for the perspective. I mean, just speaking about Myntra, it's funny, I was shopping for blue color turquoise curtains yesterday with my wife, and we found the curtains, but just below that, we found the option for a blue carpet and a blue vase and a blue this and a blue that. So my bill from 2000 is what I had budgeted, went on to 10,000 rupees. So clearly AI in play over there. So Ganesh, let's start with you, right? I think we want to kind of get a feel for some of those high impact and high frequency use cases that you've helped your clients with. I know you do, your startup is focused on AI in fashion, and we also heard about how much fashion has been impacted on the back of COVID. Why don't you just make it more real in terms of some of the things that you've done for your clients, be it post-COVID or before COVID?
No, absolutely. Let's look at the real problem, right? Let's just look at the P&L account of any fashion brand today, all right? What one thing you don't see is, you see a net sale value, and then you see a COGS, and then you see an EBITDA. So there is something huge missing there. And we all, when we go to retail, what do you see? Most of the time you get fashion on discount, right? And I'm sure, Altaf, what you bought yesterday, you had some discount for sure, right? Now the question is that the amount of discount which goes is the largest single expense of any fashion brand retailer anywhere in the world. It's in the order of anywhere between 20 to 30%. What's your marketing cost? 6 to 8%. What's your employee cost? 8 to 10%. There is nothing bigger than this cost. Now, why discount? The discount is happening because we have not been able to forecast demand properly. We made something which customer do not want. We in two forms. Either we got the quality of product wrong, or we got the quantity of demand wrong. For either we made a qualitative issue or a quantitative demand issue. Therefore, this is a real problem. And this is a make or break. In an industry which makes an EBITDA 8 to 10%, you can't have a 30% cost on MRP as a cost item which is going away. So we picked that problem, both from an economic and an environmental perspective, and say, why is it happening? It's happening because today the industry is saddled with subjective forecast. I feel this color will sell well. I feel these products will sell well. Now, largely that, and I think what we are not saying is that intuition is not good. Intuition is great, but intuition informed by data, which makes us go closer to the customer. Therefore, we then solve the data problem. So we said that, what data are you using to do all of this? And people are using largely their own data to come out with what will their customer buy in the future, or their own physical visits to various places across the world. So what we did is that, let's collect data at internet scale. Today, consumer is able to see data at internet scale, right? Now, not only that, the data just available only tells you supply signal, right? This is what is there. And if you just listen to what is out there, you have the same probability of error the industry is going through right now. It's like walking through a mall and say, I saw a lot of red, therefore red is in trend. For people picked up red and start moving red. For out of whatever red made, which red doesn't sell well? What sells well? And that's not a public data. So what Stylumia solves is collects big data at internet scale, decodes the demand, consumer demand without knowing the demand. So we build equivalent of a Google page ranking algorithm. We have a product demand ranking algorithm, which ranks every single fashion product globally. If you have a question, for example, what are the winning dresses in Nordstrom last week, right? Or a particular price point, particular attribute. Now what's happening is you're getting the right data into the funnel. So that's one problem we're solving, which is the what problem. The how much problem is equally important because you can make the right product, but in wrong quantity, right? For how do you estimate demand? Therefore, we build a prediction engine, which is an ensemble machine learning model based engine, which uses both image pixels and attributes, because many of fashion attributes you can't describe. For you really vision plus text model to predict demand of an unseen new product in an industry, which constantly changes, is a, I would say, relatively unsolved problem and a non-trivial one. That's what we are doing. Basically, we are enabling, I'm not saying that we're solving it fully. We are lifting the baseline in this industry globally on reducing the guesswork and improving the accuracy of both the what and the how much. And the impact areas, Altaf, just to maybe place on record, is revenue, profit, and inventory. It's not a theoretical exercise, right? Inventory, for example, revenue improvements upwards of 30–40%, right? And inventory turns improving 2x. And we are talking about profit growth anywhere between 30–50%, right? Provided we apply all of this.
Great. No, that's fascinating. Thanks, Ganesh. I'm sure you must be in demand, given COVID period going on. Why don't we get a perspective from Shinam on how Dell has applied AI and probably just bring to life some of the use cases. I know you referred to some of those in the earlier question, but I think it would be good to just bring to life probably a couple of examples.
I think one of the things that I would want to focus on is how we do our supply chain and the applicability of AI in our supply chain, really. Dell supply chain is really one of the most complex and sophisticated that we could find in our industry. I don't know how many of you were tracking the Nashville tornado that happened recently, or other unforeseen calamities that have been happening prior to this. It never affected our supply chain and our ability to deliver. For us, the predictability of an order from the time it has been posted to the time we deliver, the predictability that we offer to our customer is really, really key. And therefore, if anything that goes wrong, we should quickly be able to change from one factory to another factory, from one shipping destination to another shipping destination. The other complexity in supply chain for us is also the fact that, if you're talking about a laptop, a thin 1.5 kg piece has close to 1,000 pieces that go into its assembly. Now, if a particular part is not available, it affects the final outcome of the order. So how do you predict where you will need it, what kind of orders you're getting, what kind of orders you will get, and therefore what kind of parts you need to have in your place just in time so that you are able to deliver is something where we use AI a lot of time. The other place that we're using technologies around AI is in helping our customers order the right things. Now, when you're a retail customer, you want to buy a laptop, you have a particular use case in mind. You don't know whether you want to buy a Latitude, or you want to buy an XPS, or you want to buy an engineering laptop. What is it that you really want to do? If you want to play games and just use it for Excel, or you want to do something like a gaming technology build up, or you just want to answer emails and you want to look savvy and carry something slick with you. We have a defined chatbot that actually uses and talks to you and understands what your profile is and recommends what you need. So that's another use case for AI that we have. The third one that I would want to talk about here is that we've actually started integrating AI with technologies like beacons in our stores, where we actually understand how a customer is going around in our physical stores, and therefore what could be the thought processes, and therefore see how you can reorganize stuff in the stores to get better customer focus and better customer attention. So at this point of time, let's talk about these three.
Great, good stuff. Thanks, Shinam. Very, very insightful. By the way, I've removed my AI background. I thought human touch is more important as a part of the panel discussion, so I'll carry on like this. My third question, I think, is going to touch upon few of the perspectives that Hari also shared earlier on, which is the foundational capabilities that you need, right? How do you kind of develop or build those building blocks to set up the AI capability? And I think touching upon what Vijay mentioned as well, where 80% of probably the unorganized sector or large number of companies are probably right at the very early stages of developing these capabilities, right? Or even setting up an ecosystem of AI, or they're thinking about it. So I think I'll probably touch upon both Abhay and Shinam to get your perspective on how within your own company, you've adopted this journey, how you gone about approaching setting up an AI capability, just to kind of help our audience to give a bit more perspective from your companies. So Abhay, we'll get started with you and then to Shinam.
Sure. Thanks, Altaf. So first of all, great points. And in fact, before I answer that question, I just wanted to take a step back and point out, right? So we are also, for example, working with Stylumia. To answer your question, it's a combination of developing these capabilities both in-house and externally. So when I talk about Lowe's Innovation Labs, we have a 50 people team globally across US and India. And, the teams that we have picked together, which is an important component towards building these capabilities in-house, are from across different organizations to the types of the likes of SpaceX, Tesla, Magically, Brain Corp, and so on and so forth. Right? So we have a very, very diverse team which comes in together. Another point that I wanted to make is that it's a combination with these internal teams who are trying to build a lot of interesting stuff, and this is a combinational stuff, right? So sometimes a lot of stuff that we end up building out, which is even more disruptive, has a base layer of AI, right? So only unless and until we have a strong base layer of AI ML, we'll not be able to kind of patch and kind of connect a lot of other technologies to create those kind of seamless and frictionless experiences, right? So that's the second part. And for that, we also end up partnering with a lot of external partners, be it academic institutions for R&D, be it startups, etc., right? And when we partner with them, we try to co-build and co-develop some very, very interesting solutions as well. So some of the aspects that I again think, right? So for example, if you look at tactile e-commerce, something that, in the current scenario, even otherwise, is going to be very, very interesting for most consumers, is to figure out how can they visualize home improvement, or can they redesign their homes sitting at home, right? And then again, there's a lot of computer vision element to it, but of course there's AR, VR to it, and there's haptics as well. Now imagine, today AR, VR along with AI, ML is helping you not just figure out the gardening that you want to do, add the BOM so that you're able to actually add a lot of, you buy, kind of envision those products or visualize those products, buy them then and there, also understand the kind of costing that will come to, right? Or the amount of stuff that you need to buy. At the same time, imagine now tomorrow, if you want to really feel that, sitting at home, it's not possible. And that's where tactile e-commerce, using technology such as haptics, where you have actuators, you're able to touch and feel that, okay, this is what this marble would feel like, or this is what silk would feel like, and so on and so forth. So it's a combination of multiple technologies coming together to solve for a lot of these things. Again, like Sheena mentioned, in terms of in-store experiences, right? When you talk about planogram compliances, planogram validations, shelf purity, and so on and so forth. So there's so many AI different layers of AI technologies that come in. And what we have tried to do is we have tried to build a combinational effort to do that. And when I say partners, right, in fact, sometime back, we acquired a startup which is in the space of providing us competitors, competitive insights and consumer insights that will help us create our assortment categories better as well, right? So that, today's consumers are very, very sharp in terms of what they're looking for, what are the exact products that they want. They have some confusion, like Sheena mentioned, and that's where we can help them navigate through those challenges. They want a very sharp price point, and they want an omni-channel fulfillment. Now, to kind of create this overall experience in a very, very streamlined way, that's where all these technologies fit in together. And, be it acquisitions or be it the internal team members who are building this out, I think it has to go very much hand in hand to build a much stronger and robust ecosystem for AI across the company.
Fascinating. Thanks, Abhay. No wonder you guys create a big hole in the wallet every time someone decides to open one. With all the fascinating technologies, right? So really, really interesting. Shinam, you want to share your perspective about how you guys have gone
Yeah,
about that journey in Dell?
correct. I would. I think I want to take a step back and say, when a data scientist today really wants to start building a model, she spends 80% of the time actually cleansing the data and 20% of the time on data modeling. Now, why does that happen? It's basically because there's a lack of visibility on data assets which are spread across the organizations. There are silos of data. There's very primitive data engineering practices that are happening across, right? How do you build that? So you start with doing things which are at a centralized focus, right? You start with the fact that there should be a data ops, which is DevOps plus plus, which you start looking at how does data flow through the organization, where is it controlled and transformed centrally and then made available for BI consumption. What are the kind of quality metrics that you want to put in for data itself from source to the BI and the data science consumption layer. um, at Dell, what we are trying to do is we're trying to enable data discovery through data cataloging, making business teams like Sri Kripa's team internally to be much more self-sufficient in meeting their data needs. We do not want to do data sciences centrally. We have models which, every ops team runs their own analytics engines separately. But really, how do you bring the data to everybody from a central perspective is something that we want to see make it happen. So the 2 or 3 initiatives that we are running right now is to see how you can have data as a service, really, from an infrastructure perspective, making it self-service and allowing people through either a voice chat bot or other things to consume data in both bite size and large scale batch kind of functions, right? So both real time and batch. How is that helping us? I think it's helping us in two modes. A, we are very, very clear on our governance and privacy. B, we are allowing people to be flexible and our business stakeholders to have the flexibility to go out and define what they want to do and solve the problems that they want to do. So that's the kind of model that we have at Dell.
Cool, good stuff. No, thanks, Shinam, for the perspective. Given the interest of time, I think I would really appreciate a question. Just to summarize, I think really good different perspectives from end-to-end value chain, where it's required to look at it from an end-to-end point of view, to high impact, high frequency, which will stay in my mind, that Ganesh shared, to some of the examples that we had from Dell, both in terms of supply chain, physical store, and finally just looking at what's really important from foundational capabilities, from a diverse team to really having a strong base layer of AI or data assets to be able to exploit or partner with the startup ecosystem, to also really important to co-develop solutions, right? And create that bit of an ecosystem where you can work together and co-develop solutions with different partners and capabilities coming together. So with that, I think I'll hand it back to you, Snehanshu, for any question that you would want to take. I think we are on time.
We are on time, and very well done, very well done. Thanks so much. But Abhay, I saw you responding to one of the questions on the chat. It would be so nice if you could just put the question out and also respond it for the benefit of everybody else who hasn't seen your response yet. We still have some time. Yeah.
So happy to do that. Right. So the question that was asked by Shaurya was the point about innovation in silos, which is a strong area of improvement. How are enterprises managing flow of output of one innovative solution as an input to the other? Is this attempted at POC stage or during full-scale implementation? So I was just giving a perspective that, and this is of course my perspective, right? And so my perspective was that, of course, at Lowe's, when we deploy these solutions, they're of course going to be in production, across the omni-channel strategy that we have. Having said that, from a Lowe's Innovation Lab standpoint, we try to look at it from an innovation team standpoint. So if, like for example, I mentioned gave the example of tactile e-commerce. there are multiple elements which would come together, be tested, integrated together, and then we put into production. So we're going to look at it to start off with from a POC level. And before that, we were talking about utilizing data. So there's obviously going to be a lot of strategy put together to understand what's the kind of data that you need to collect. What are the different elements and technologies? Because some of these things are evolving so fast that today some of these technologies are not even applied to retail, for example. And then you start thinking about how these things can all come together. You start individually testing them as individual components, start integrating them, and then put them into production. So that is our outlook towards scaling them and implementing it at production level. Hope that.
Thank you so much for the response. Any more questions? I don't necessarily see there's a question coming in. Will AI be helpful in education sector during COVID-19? If yes, how? Any one of you can just attempt that question. I think that is what we'll probably have time for in this edition. Will AI be helpful in education sector? There's another one coming in. How can we use AI to improve sales in
Kirana stores?
Kirana stores, I believe that's what it is.
I guess
one
it is
question.
similar to what. I guess it's similar to what Vijay was referring to, right? How do you kind of create a platform where you can bring those Kirana stores together? How do you enable them with, and also empower them, right, with an ability to get the technology and AI to work for them based on what they are doing as a store? I think it's a great area of opportunity, and we can see the amount of billions which are flowing into Mr. Mukesh Ambani in terms of the opportunity that it shows up as. So I think it's going to be a very interesting area in the way in which that space is going to pan out. But just an answer to the previous question as well, I think the approach we use is a very proof of value approach. Any innovation that has a value linked to it, even if you do a POC, we don't call it a POC, we want to encourage a proof of value. A proof of value needs to have an ROI, and if it doesn't have an ROI, there's no proof of value. There is no free cash. So the approach that we have in Tesco is prove it and then scale it.
Lovely. So what a great session it was. I think the shortage of time was more than made up for fascinating insights that came in from the panelists. Thank you so much. Ganesh, Sheenam, Abhay, thank you so much for your time. Altaf, thanks for moderating this session and helping bring out crisp points in terms of applications of AI in the retail sector.
My pleasure.
So with that, I would like to thank everybody for participating in this event. Thank you, Hari, for your keynote speech, Srikripa and Altaf for moderating the sessions, all our panelists for sharing their experiences and perspectives with us today. We will wrap up this edition of AI Parley now with the promise that we will glean insights coming in from all the discussions that have happened today. I will put it up on our LinkedIn page along with hopefully a recording of this session as well. Thanks for tuning in and see you around the next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.